السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم. We have begun our journey of understanding buying and selling. How does it look like? Today, inshallah, we will speak about the different types of buying and selling, which is categorized into three main category. One is buying and selling, those kind of purchases that revolves around the product. And the second category we have is those kind of purchases that revolves around finalizing the fixation of price. And number three, those kind of purchases that revolves around the nature of price. These are the three main categories that has been distributed in buying and selling. We'll talk about this today, inshallah. And this is for us to understand that how does the bank deal with us, and knowing this will help us and be Sharia compliant when we are doing transactions. The whole aim is to help each individual among us to be Sharia compliant in their transactions. So these are some transactions that I will talk about today. I will define them today, which will help us be ourselves as Sharia compliant and understand the rule that what Sharia is asking us to be in our transactions. So financial institutions, Islamic financial institution, banks, small business, big business, whatever you are from, this will help you to fix your transaction. Even if you are a consumer, it will help you to withhold how to do a transaction from the lens of Sharia. Moving for first category, all those purchases that revolves around product. Number one is general purchases, general transactions, normal buying and selling. From one hand, you give your product, and from the other hand, you take your money or the price of the product in exchange. This is the normal transaction which we do, or the small businesses they do in their business. The second type of uh, purchase that is there in this first category. So the first category we have, and the first purchase is normal buying and selling. The second purchase is named as bay or salam, which means forward purchasing. What is this about? This is about when a person goes to the shop to buy something. He pays the money, right? But he does not get the product now. The product will be given to him in some period of time, which has been discussed by the two parties. One of the example that I can think of now is when we go to a car dealer shop or to a car dealer, and we want to buy a car. So we give the money up hand, like, okay, I'm going to give you maybe 100,000 dirhams, and the car dealer says the car will be delivered in 3 months time, 6 months time. This kind of transaction is known as bay or salam, or forward buying transaction. Of course, there are some conditions to it, which will, inshallah, we will cover in our later episodes. The second transaction that revolves around product is named as bay or surf. Bay or surf means exchange in the prices. For example, the one of the easy understanding of this is the exchange that we have. So we go there in exchange, we give let's say $100 in exchange of dirhams. All of this transaction that happens through the prices, where the product is price itself, the 100 dirhams or $100 that giving or taking in exchange of another currency is considered to be as a product, and we exchange. So all the transactions that take place within the banks of this regards, or in the exchange centers where they exchange currencies, all falls under bay or surf. Of course, there are various conditions for it to be the most Sharia compliant, but these are some of the heads titles or that we must know when doing transaction, because whatever transaction we see nowadays, they have been sourced from these transaction that I'm giving definition of. No matter wherever we go in the world, whichever Islamic bank we have or whichever Islamic institution we have, whatever sort of dealing we do dealing within the boundary of these transactions, right? And these transactions are those that ulama has derived it from the hadith and from the life of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Third transaction that transaction or the third number three transaction is bay'ul muqayadah, which means which is exchange and barter system, giving product exchange for product. Normally we still this sort of transactions still exist around the world. And the example that I could think of is when the two countries they trade within themselves, normally, or there is a part of the trade there is barter system trade. The company is getting a resource from a country is getting a resource from a country B in exchange of another resource. For example, a country is taking a resource from the country which is agriculture. In exchange of agriculture, they are trying to give their resource which is oil. These sort of transactions still exist today, but normally in normal companies also it exists. But in a larger picture, it exists within the countries. These all categories or these all types of bay or purchases falls under the first category, which is the purchases that revolves around the product. Now, coming to the second category, the second category that we have is all those purchases that revolves around the fixation of price. Now, first we had about product. Now let's talk about price, because when we see the general bay, buying and selling, it will have a product, it will have a price. All transactions that revolves around the product are four main transactions which I discussed: normal bay salam, bay sarf, and bay muqayada. These four transactions will are normally that surrounds the all the type of bay that surrounds around the product. Of course, there are conditions and there are subcategories to this transactions, right? Like the branches of this transaction, but these are the main core bay. Every bay that is surrounding the product will always fall under this category. Uh, the second category, all the bay that revolves around the price, fixation of price. Number one, bay'ul musawama, means when you're doing a transaction, you are bargaining on the price. This sort of bay in which we are bargaining on the price is named as bay'ul musawama. Second purchase in the second category is bay'ul muzayada, means when you are doing a transaction, you are keeping your product. It's like an auction. Bay'ul muzayada is an auction purchase, an auction sell. So there is a product, you told the price, and then you wait for the people to fix the price of your product. This kind of bay muzayada. And it is accepted in Sharia if there are conditions to it which has been fulfilled. If the conditions has been fulfilled, then this bay is acceptable in Islam. It has to be Sharia compliant. Then the third purchase in the second category is buyur al-amana. All those transactions which is falling under to fix the price, but they withhold the sifa or the attributes of honesty and trust in the transaction. So ulama in the third purchase they categorize three sort of purchases. The first one is bay'ul murabaha. Bay'ul murabaha refers to those purchases, those transactions in which the seller tells the cost of the product and the amount of margin, amount of profit that he is going to earn in the profit in the transaction. For example, if he is a cup of tea he is selling, for example, he says that to his purchaser, look, to make this cup of tea I'm spending 2 dirham, okay, or $2. right? And I'm putting one dirham or $1 as my profit on this cup of tea, okay? And then he is selling. This sort of bay is basically everything is revolving around the price, and this sort of bay is known as bay'ul murabaha, all right? Resale with the profit. This falls into the bay amana, the trust and honesty of the seller, because he is being honest with his cost and with his profit, and he's talking about that to the purchaser. The second category or the second type of purchase in this bayu al amana is bayu al tawliya. Bayu al tawliya, those type of bay in which the seller is selling the product at the cost price. He is not selling at profit, he is not selling at loss, but he is selling at cost price. So he says to his purchaser that, look, this is the cup of tea which is of 2 dirhams, right? So I'm telling you 2 dirhams. I'm not earning any benefit or any profit from you. So this type of way resale at cost price. Resale at cost price. The third and the last sort of bay purchase in Buyul Amana is named as Bay'ul Wad'iyah, resale at loss. So the person is selling his product not at cost price, but he is selling at loss. He is selling at loss. The point to be noted over here, the Sharia does not like when someone is doing a purchase, someone is doing business or transactions, Sharia wants you to earn profit. That's why various ulama, they mentions one of the key criteria to the business and the acceptable business is that the person earns profit. So they tell these guidelines are issued for the buyers and for the sellers that when you sell your product, when you buy your product, ensure that you do not harm any one of the buying or seller in their price. Don't make sure that you do not create loss for them. The third category revolves around understanding the nature of price. This is the place where most of the conditions that we put in the on the price, and sometimes it invalidates our bay or make it gives or make or puts the bay in the category of batil or fasad. That is, the first thing in this is that when we talk about the nature of price, it mostly revolves around the conditions that we put on the price. For example, we are putting the condition of paying the money later, right? We'll pay you money later and we'll take the product later, right? Or we will pay you money later, but we'll take the product now, right? These sort of conditions that is applied on the price has is subject to understand the nature of the purchase that's going to happen, because normally when the price is when the conditions are put on price, then they is subject to deep and dive and understand the level of conditions is being put, because we need to ensure that it is not harming either of the parties in the transactions. So considering all of that, so that the two parties does not indulge themselves into any sort of um, fight or any sort of inconvenience, it is better that these things should be considered. There are the conditions that I mentioned, the third category are two, but there are more to it which we can look in detail once we reach to certain sort of conditions and understand this. So, as a summary, when we see buying and selling is divided into three categories. The first category, the purchases that revolves around the product. The second category is the purchases that revolves around the fixation of price. And the third category is the purchases that revolves around the nature of price. Within this, we have different types of purchases. The first category has four types. Second category has three types, and the third category of purchases normally I just mentioned two. Uh, I mentioned two sort of conditions that normally people put on the price or on the nature of the price. This is the normal thing that we need to know, and we must ensure that when we are buying or we are selling, we can look at this and contemplate on our purchases that we do. Inshallah, from in the next session, inshallah, we'll talk about bay'ul mu'ata. Bay'ul mu'ata, this is an action that how bay'ul mu'ata is an important action that is done in buying and selling, inshallah, and this is will be discussed in the next episode. وجزاكم الله خيرا وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم.